People are always asking us, how can we afford to take these epic bucket list vacations? Because they think it must cost a fortune. The truth is, Melissa hasn't paid for a flight to Europe in years, if even ever, in all of the trips that we've taken. One of our problems is that we've been boxed into using certain brands until our guest this week opened our eyes to a better solution that allows us to be more flexible in how we use reward points to travel. This week, we want to share with you some of the secrets to opening new opportunities that you may not know about. So sit back and learn from our guests this week on how you can travel for free or near free using the tips from Abby Hatteburg. I'm Scott.
And I'm Melissa.
And we're the Sunshine Travelers. Our passion is travel and sharing our experiences with those who enjoy it as much as we do, or those who want to learn more about travel, or even those who just want to live vicariously through our travel stories. No matter where you fall along that journey, get ready to hear about our firsthand experiences as we visit some of the most interesting and amazing places on Earth.
I've been following Abby on Instagram for a while now and literally learned so much from her Instagram posts and stories that I binge all of them. Scott and I have been using airline miles and hotel points for years, even to the point where it's painful to have to pay for a flight or a hotel room. But in the past, we have stuck within the same brands, Delta and Marriott, which doesn't necessarily give you the most bang for your buck in terms of points and flexibility. Abby may not know this, but thanks to her, we have dug way deeper into earning more points over the last 12 months and then learning how to redeem them for some upcoming trips, what we will get into in a bit. So, since our goal is to help you travel more and better, and we always try to use points and miles first when booking our travels, Abby does this for her entire family multiple times a year. So we wanted to have her on the podcast and help us all learn even more.
And Melissa, I would just add that this doesn't replace what we've said about loyalty, because there are some benefits to loyalty. So we mentioned Delta and Marriott. Most likely, we're still going to fly Delta pretty often because we've got things like my diamond status where we get to fly in first class, right? Those are things that you won't get if you don't have loyalty with the brand. But where that's not the best option for us is what we're going to talk about today.
And even earning more points that we could use maybe on those airlines if that ends up being the best redemption. So that's absolutely true. So Abby, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Our goal is to help our listeners and our followers travel more and better. And what a better way to do that than sharing what you do, which is to use points and miles for free and discounted travel, which allows you to do just that. And so we wanted to have you on and just share some of your tips and tricks and basics and all the things with our listeners. So Abby, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. And I just love, I always say, how is everyone not doing this? So I'm always so happy to spread the word, get more families traveling together, especially if it feels like completely out of reach to you financially. So I am, Abby Hatteburg. I'm a mom of 3 based in Dallas, Texas. And essentially, I help teach other families how to travel more for less, nearly free or really steeply discounted vacations using credit card points and miles. So how to, respect credit card points without, negatively impacting your credit score. And then how to, once you have all those points in hand, how to maximize them to their very maximum travel potential. Because I guarantee you're probably not using those points to their full travel potential right now. So I'm excited to share. But we love traveling. We love traveling internationally. We love hidden gems. We love Europe. We're basically traveling on every break that we can. So
that is awesome. That is awesome. We love to do the same thing. So I am curious, how did you get into this? How did you get started?
Yeah. So I think, when me and my husband first met, we always shared a love of travel. Even from that first date, that was something immediately that we connected on. We thought we wanted to live abroad for a while. Life had other plans. We ended up in Texas. But we always found creative ways to travel. We've always kind of been a one-income family, budget has been tight. You know, I always say we've had like a champagne travel taste on a beer budget. We just wanted to travel so much more than our budget allowed. So that forced us to get creative. And so over the years, you know, we did things like Airbnb our house when we went away to, you know, capitalize on that, you know, asset that we already owned. And then it was after I had my second. So we had one kind of 2-year-old fresh baby. We were really just looking for a way. I was kind of, you know, struggling with postpartum, and I was just searching for a way like to get my spirit back, you know, like just it had been a while since we traveled. And there came across this like flash flight deal for Italy. And I remember just calling my husband and be like, is it a crazy idea if we just, you know, hop on this flash flight deal and go to Italy? And he was like, I'm in. We owned our own business at that time. So we kind of dropped everything and went. And so at that time, you know, that's what kind of started our points journey. And from there, so that was quite a while ago, 6 years ago. And from there, we've just learned how to use our credit card points more effectively and more effectively and more effectively, and how to accumulate them more quickly. So that's what kind of kicked it off, was just this like bucket list trip to Italy to take our kids there for a month over that summer. I had lived in Italy after I graduated college, so to go back was really special and kind of a bucket list trip for us. But that's kind of what kicked it off, was just this like dream of a trip with 2 young kids to this country that was really, really special to us. And then from there, just, you know, kind of honing in our points and miles skills and, you know, now getting better and better at it to where we're taking, you know, multiple bucket list trips a year for a fraction of the actual cost. So
that's great.
Yeah.
You know, we just recently did an episode about traveling with children to Europe.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
We did that earlier this year with our grandkids who are 5 and 2. It's just amazing to watch them, you know, and some people say, oh, they won't remember it and stuff like that. But I really do believe they were creating some core memories.
Amen. I totally agree. I think, you know, on that first trip, like our oldest turned 3 while we were in Italy, and our youngest was 8 months. And the oldest absolutely remembers. And the youngest, I don't know if she has conscious memories of it, but it absolutely built like into our family culture, I think, you know,
right.
This like culture of this is what we do together. This is how we make memories together. And then how fun for her. Like she's always referencing back, like, well, you have to take me back to Italy because I don't even remember the pizza. Like I was 8 months old, you know? So she's like still waiting on her like real trip to Italy. But yeah, I totally agree. I think they may not like have those conscious memories of it, but it's like 100%, I think, building into who they are and like also the family culture, I think. So.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, for somebody who has no idea, like how to get points and miles, or how to get, or they're hearing you say this, and like, how do you get that many points and miles? Because I think sometimes we may see on the internet, it might be a single person or a couple, and you're like, okay, well, that's fine for them.
Totally.
But you have got, now your youngest is he still free on flights, or are you having to pay?
About to not be. We just took our last free flight. So
okay. So you're going to have five, and you're still going to be able to do this. So how does somebody get started?
Yeah. So I would say kind of big picture framework. Reward travel is essentially the idea of, you know, we're going to throw out our debit card. We're going to use our credit card for every single purchase responsibly. And we're going to, when we make purchases, we're going to earn points that can then be used and redeemed on, say, airfare, hotels. So that's kind of big picture framework. We're making purchases, earning. Most people understand that concept. But I think for so many people, you put all your normal expenses. So many people are putting all their normal expenses on a credit card, and maybe they're earning like a few $100s, maybe $1,000 to take off a vacation a year, like nothing super significant. And so the shift with reward travel happens essentially like the reward travel cycle is kind of how I'm very visual. So I like to think about it like as a cycle. we are essentially the biggest bang you can get for your buck when it comes to reward travel is signing up for a new card. Because when the banks essentially say, hey, if you open up this new card and you spend X amount of money in X amount of time, you are going to earn this welcome offer, this bonus of sorts. And we're going to, reward you with a big, pile of points essentially. So that's kind of where you see like the highest ROI on earning points. You can put your purchases on one card over and over, and you're really only going to earn so much. But the real magic happens when you can take those everyday purchases that you are going to make anyways and put them on new cards over and over. So that's kind of like the framework of the cycle, is essentially we are taking the purchases we're already making. We are never spending any extra money to earn a bonus, right? Because that would completely defeat the purpose of the free travel, right? I think that is huge underlying key here, is if you cannot use your credit card like a debit card, like this might not be the travel saving, strategy for you in this season. But if you are able to, credit cards can be an amazing tool for earning, really steeply discounted vacations for your family. So essentially, that's kind of the cycle, is taking those everyday purchases we are already making, signing up for new cards that then, put back in our pocket a big pile of reward points. I may open up a card and then I refer my husband to that same card. We're combining all those points together. And then kind of the second key part of the point cycle is, instead of, we've got that big old pile of points now, instead of say, using them as a cashback statement credit, which is what we did for years and years and years. So like if we had 100,000 points, we would cash it out for $1,000 to kind of erase our travel purchases. We did that forever. Or maybe, gosh, I remember so many like gift cards I would purchase in the credit card travel portal. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, like just RIP to all the travel lost on all those gift cards that I purchased in that portal. So essentially the key is, once you get that big pile of points, we are going to transfer them out to airline and hotel partners of your card. That is where you'll see like a huge return on your points. And that alone, even just you starting to transfer your points out, can double to triple your travel potential. And then it just starts all over again. So, you earn those points, redeem those points by transferring them out, and then we're signing up for new cards to do the whole thing over again. So that's kind of like big picture.
I think that's probably a scary concept for people who are listening to this for the 100%. First time. Right. Yep. So can you just take a few minutes, because I caught that you were talking about responsible usage and not doing something out of the ordinary. But can you just kind of hone in on that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, number one, yes. I think if you weren't a little skeptical about this, like I might be a little concerned. I think it shows a lot of financial responsibility if you are skeptical about this. Like, I think that's normal and healthy. And I think anyone in the points world went through that phase. That's very normal. I would say, starting with the biggest misconception, that having a lot of accounts, so a lot of new cards open on your credit history, automatically means a negative score. I think that's like the biggest misconception. I grew up in a very financially minded household. So this kind of goes against everything I was taught in a way. But again, it can be a tool if used responsibly to leverage so much more travel than you already thought, but it has to be used responsibly. And what I mean by that is, we're not spending any more. So if I have to meet this, I've got to spend, $4,000 in 3 months. I'm not going out and making, an extra purchase on a TV to hit that minimum spend. That, again, completely defeats the purpose. So there's got to be some sort of, diligence there in keeping track of your spending, and you're just transferring, instead of taking those, everyday purchases that you would spend, groceries, dining out, on the same card over and over. All you're doing is transferring that to new cards every few months or whatever your rhythm is. And then I would say things like, if you go out and apply for 5 new cards in a week, like absolutely your credit score is going to take a hit. Like you have to kind of play by the rules in a sense. I always say you really need to try and space applications by 90 days, ideally per person. So you could kind of stagger it if you're a couple. Things like, if you are going to, after a year, maybe you're looking at downgrading a card so you don't keep that annual fee going, right? Again, something that would completely defeat the purpose of the free travel. Let's say I might downgrade a card after a year. I'm never gonna downgrade that card before the 1 year mark. That's it's a red flag to banks. It's a red flag to, the credit bureaus. So that's kind of another piece. And really like the crux of it all though is making full and on-time payments every single month. Like if you can do that, you will see your score go up, which feels very counterintuitive and very backwards, but that's how it works. Essentially as your credit amount grows and your utilization stays low, like ironically, again, it feels backwards. The credit bureaus like that. They like that really low utilization. And that's why really 100% of people, if you do it responsibly, that get into points and miles, see their score go up. Our score's never been higher, ever. So again, I guess that's what I mean when I say responsibly. Like you've got to keep the guidelines in mind. You can't get like heavy-handed with it or like shiny card syndrome. You've got to be able to show some self-control. And if not, then maybe not in this season. It's the way to say for you. But yeah.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned is that you've got to take your regular purchases, right? So you don't accumulate extra debt that you can't then pay off because then you're paying interest. So you're actually, you could spend that money on the vacation instead of that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then you're taking those regular purchases and meeting that minimum spend. So you would want to have that cycle anyway, right? Looking at your budget. Yep. And then when you're looking at opening those cards, if whatever that minimum is, you don't spend that amount, then there's other cards that you should definitely look at then.
Yeah,
and there's
exactly. Yes. And that would be a whole nother piece there. That's a great point. Just signing up for a card strategically. Like if you are living on a tighter budget, you're not going to go out and get a new card that has a $10,000 minimum spent. Like that's not a good move for you. There's tons of a variety of cards that you can go for based on your budget, how much you're already spending, naturally, what kind of travel you want to do, how you want to travel, where you want to travel. So there's a whole, kind of strategy to it. But that's a huge piece is just being cognizant of what cards you're signing up for.
So where would you say, so either if people are just getting into this and like, okay, this is interesting, I want to try this, or maybe they've had some travel credit cards, they've done this in the past, but then they didn't realize you could keep opening more. What is the best way for people to then find out what is their next best card for them?
Sure. I always have like a best offers page on all my content. Elevated offers are always coming out, but I would say kind of beyond the elevated offers, I think like hands down, without even thinking about anything, the best and easiest place to start is with the Chase Sapphire Preferred. It's, the most widely, recommended travel card, like hands down by all the experts, just based on the perks it's providing for such a low annual fee. And really, I think the crux of that card is its transfer partners. Like what you can do with those points is wild. What's possible, like the kind of travel that's possible because of what transfer partners that card has. So I think if you are like, I'm curious about this, I might want to, even if you don't think you want to like dive headfirst in, like just getting the Chase Sapphire Preferred in your wallet, I think is a great first move. You can, I think, what I kind of call like the points blueprint or like beginner's blueprint would be like essentially, let's say you're a pair, you have a partner one signs up for the Chase Sapphire, you meet the minimum spend using your normal everyday purchases. You're then going to refer your spouse for that same card. You're not going to add them as an authorized user. You're going to refer them to that same card. They're going to meet the minimum spend using your normal everyday purchases. You're going to combine all of those points together into one big pile of juicy travel chase points. And then you're going to transfer those out. I think great, like really easy transfer partners to start with for flights is Southwest. Really, if you definitely could go more complicated if you wanted to do like a Europe. Air France is a fantastic transfer partner for Europe. So you could do that. And then hotel wise, hands down, Hyatt is very beginner friendly. You're going to see a massive return on your points for that. So I think that's kind of a great place to start, what I call like the beginner's blueprint. Like partner 1 and partner 2 both sign up for the Sapphire. You're going to combine your points together and then transfer them out to, semi-beginner friendly partners like a Southwest and Air France, and then for sure Hyatt. And then after that 1 year mark, I always say you don't need 2 Sapphires per household. So you could want that partner 2 can downgrade so you don't have that double ongoing fee. But that Chase Sapphire really is like hands down one you want to keep in your wallet long term. It's not one, you definitely want one per household long term. You don't want to downgrade both. So that's a great place to start.
Awesome. Thank you. And explain for people who don't know, what does that mean, downgrade a card?
Yeah, great. Sorry about that. Yeah, I should have explained that. So essentially, a lot of the most valuable credit cards are going to have an annual fee, right? They have an annual fee for a reason. Like banks aren't just going to give away their most valuable cards, at no cost typically. So something like the Chase Sapphire, for example, has an annual fee of $95. Now, what you get with that is, all these amazing transfer partners. You get built-in trip insurance, baggage delay insurance. You get a $50 hotel credit. You get a free DoorDash subscription. So you're getting a lot of perks back in your pocket for that low annual fee. And when I say downgrade, essentially, I mean, you are going to, move that card down to a no annual fee option. So you're not having that ongoing $95 cost, again, not defeating the purpose of the free travel. You're using that, sign up bonus to get that big, rich pile of points. And then you can move that card to a no annual fee version, essentially in the same family of cards, basically.
Right. And you do that either by calling them or like chatting with them online or whatever that.
Yeah, it depends on the bank. Some allow chat online, like Amex and Citi are great about online messaging, and like Chase, you typically call in. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's on the Chase Sapphire real quick.
Yeah.
There are multiple levels to that, right? So you mentioned the preferred, I think.
Yeah.
But then they also have a reserve.
Yeah, I love that question because I'm a nerd and I just love this stuff. Okay, so I think the reserve, I don't think it's as great as the advertisements make it seem. I think it's got a really steep annual fee. I think it's $550. It's really steep. For the perks that it provides, I do not think it is $550 worth a year. I know a whole lot about travel credit cards, and I think that $95 annual fee on the Sapphire Preferred provides far more benefits, I would say. If you want a premium card that provides like premium, benefits, like namely, I would say like lounge access is a huge draw for people on the reserve, airport lounge access. I think if you are interested in like premium perks like that, hands down, the Capital One Venture X is the way to go. It's such a better value. You get such more extensive lounge access than the reserve provides. And it's only has a $395 annual fee. And it provides tons of annual credits that help offset that. So that's my favorite combination. Like if I, tell people to sign up for 2 cards, it's the Chase Sapphire and the Capital One Venture X. Like that's my favorite combo. Like if you don't want to get deep into points and miles, just having those 2 cards in your wallet can get you a lot more travel and a lot better travel in your pocket.
Great. And I guess one thing that you've kind of talked about is, so not only annual fee, but then these travel perks, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to have a card with an annual fee.
Totally.
But then some of these, what you're saying is these perks, if you use them, almost negate that. Yeah.
Totally.
So what would you say are the best travel perks that then take care of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, that's totally normal. Again, normal to be scared of an annual fee. Again, I think that's really financially responsible to try and avoid any sort of recurring costs that isn't putting value back in your pocket. So I totally get the hesitation. And I 100% was the same before I got into this. But for example, let's look at the Capital One Venture X. My favorite, if it wasn't for the transfer partners on the Chase Sapphire, the Venture X is, if you can get over that mental hump of the annual fee, it's the best card to have in your wallet. So it's got a $395 annual fee, but with that, you are getting a $300 annual credit to use in their travel portal. So that right there is, if you, like you said, if you can use that, that's the key. Now, if you neglect it and don't use it, no, that card isn't worth it right there. But, we always make sure to use, who's not getting a rental car probably once a year? I always usually reserve that credit for rental cars because that's harder to save on with points. And so I find that a really easy way to use that credit for a cost it was going to have to be out of pocket anyway. So I might as well, get all these other glitzy benefits. So with that, it is a $300 annual credit in the portal. You're also getting 10,000 anniversary points, which at a minimum equals $100. So that's kind of right there. We've if you can use that credit, it slashed it down to $0. You're getting TSA PreCheck and global entry credit. So you can, go for global entry, or it provides up to $95 in TSA PreCheck or global entry credit. Or I'm sorry, $100. That's $100.
And typically the way that works, just to the way that works is you have to pay for that on that card. And then they usually it automatically comes off, which is super automatically. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. You don't even have to call in. It just literally recognizes the charge and gives you a credit. Yeah. It's really nice. And then a feature I love that I feel is really underrated is the built-in travel insurance, luggage delay, trip cancellation. It's a very robust travel insurance. So all you have to do is essentially put any amount of that flight on that card, on the Capital One Venture X, and it's covering that flight. So even if you purchase, say, a points flight, let's say I purchase a points flight to Hawaii and I'm paying, that $11 in taxes, because you can't avoid that when purchasing a flight with points. Right. Even that $11 in taxes, if I put that on the Venture X, it is covering that flight with trip delay, trip cancellation. So we just went to Cabo a few months ago and our flight was canceled on the way home. And we had to end up spending 2 more nights in Cabo. Shoot, it was lovely, but we weren't expecting hundreds of dollars of additional hotel costs. Right. And so because we had put our flights, we purchased the flight with points, but we paid those taxes with the Capital One Venture X, we were covered up to $500 per ticketed passenger. So you just submit your receipts, you get that reimbursement back. So I think that alone is incredibly valuable. And then that's not even to mention the unlimited lounge access that comes with this card. So you get unlimited lounge access to all Capital One, Plaza Premium, and Priority Pass lounges worldwide. Wow, and that's for you and 2 free guests, and every authorized user and 2 free guests. So essentially, a family of 6, this is the only card I recommend adding your spouse as an authorized user because of this exact feature. Okay. Essentially, a family of 6 could get unlimited worldwide airport lounge access with this one card. So I guess that's what I mean when I say, if you really look at those, perks, sometimes it's putting a whole lot more value back in your pocket for that annual cost that you're paying.
Right. Just
So,
knowing that those exist, right?
Yeah.
So not only do you have these points and miles, but you have all these other travel perks, which makes travel day so much easier, but
Oh
just
my gosh.
making sure, especially with kids, especially with
better.
lounge access. Yeah.
Honestly, just saving the food. I mean, food is so expensive, especially at airports. Like, and if you multiply that by 3, 4, 5, 6, I mean, that alone saves us hundreds easily. So
Yeah. Awesome. And so I wanted just to highlight one other thing that you said is that like just redeeming those points. A lot of times you go into that credit card portal and it's like, okay, book in this portal. But it's the transferring those to these partners that makes those points so much more valuable. So I want you to just highlight, can you think of a couple of trips where it's been like night and day difference between the portal and what you have actually used those?
Yeah. Okay. That's fun. I'll go with our most extreme example, and then I'll maybe go like a little bit more what you might see more of, because of course there's like the unicorn of redemptions. So last November, we took a kid-free trip to the Big Sur area, which was lovely and so wonderful. We booked a Lila Ventana Big Sur, which I had not heard of until I got in the points world. But essentially, it's a kind of 5-star luxury boutique all-inclusive in Big Sur. And it is like just as magical as it sounds. The food was fantastic. The service was like, best we'd ever experienced. Beautiful setting. You're like right on the coast in Big Sur. So that hotel in cash goes for, I would say, anywhere from like $2,000 to $2,500 a night.
Oh, wow.
Wild.
Okay.
Like we're never going to drop that kind of money.
Right.
On one night at a hotel. Yeah. Right. Even if it comes with the best food, like no way are we ever going to spend that kind of money. So had I used my points to get a cashback statement credit, I would have needed 250,000 points for one night, right? Because if the cash cost is $2,500, if I'm doing that 1-for-1 trade and I'm using my points as a cashback statement credit, which we did for years and years, I need 250,000 points for one night. Now, let's say I book in the portal, like with the Chase Sapphire, your points are worth 1.25 times more in the portal.
Okay.
So we're going to get a little bit better value there, right? And that's what Chase they like to put that on display, like, because they're getting money back in their pocket, essentially, for booking in that portal. It's going right back in their pockets. Right. So we're going to do a little better in that portal. But if I take those exact same points and I transfer them to Hyatt, book the exact same room, exact same nights, we booked that property for 40,000 points a night. Wow. Instead of, say, 250,000 to maybe like 225, 200,000 for a night. So 40,000 points a night for one night. So we essentially got 3 nights for less than the price of what we would have paid for one night.
Wow.
So that I would say is like the, really unicorn of a redemption. That's probably been our best one of our best ones yet. But that's the power of transferring your points. You're booking the exact same property for the exact same nights, but just because you move those points out and book directly with Hyatt, you're getting just this massive return on your points for a property and an experience that you never would have afforded or gone for otherwise. So that for sure was, I think, one of our best. That was a really, really cool trip and just an amazing property.
And I think that's kind of the key here is that what you are able to do, you would never pay for. You would never be able to experience these things.
Yes.
At that level. And it doesn't always have to be that way. Like you could stay in budget type things, but you have that ability to then try to find some of these redemptions that are
in your budget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what I love about it is you can make it exactly what you want to, like based on your family's culture. And like maybe you want to, hike and do all the national parks and do budget hotels and like really stretch your points. Like if that's your bucket list, that points can make that happen. And maybe you're doing more national parks than you ever thought possible. Maybe your style is more like, bougie on a budget and you want to stay at the luxury properties, but it's not quite in the budget right now. Like, that's what I love about points, is it makes things like that possible, but it also can make whatever your bucket list looks like. I just love that it can make things in reach that weren't in reach before.
Yeah.
So
do you have an example of like a flight example?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like kind of in the vein of making things possible that you didn't think, I think lots of families want to go to Europe. I think it's one of those bucket list things. Families are like, oh man, I'd love to take at one point a Europe trip with my kids. But you go to look at the flights alone and you're like, well, we're already 4,000 to 5,000 in deep just to get over there. That's not hotels. It's not excursions, food. So I think Europe is also one of my very favorite redemptions because it makes annual trips to Europe possible for us because we're able to get the tickets for a fraction of the cost. So my favorite strategy for Europe is to take actually any of your credit card points, because all credit card points transfer to Air France. That's my favorite, hands down favorite transfer partner for Europe.
Okay.
Just amazing rates to Europe, usually great availability, very beginner friendly. And they offer a family program where kids, I think it's 12 and under, or it could be 11 and under, get 25% off their tickets and taxes. So it's an amazing program for families. So essentially what you can do is, let's say on average, a flight to Europe costs $1,000. Let's just say on average, probably higher in peak summer,
right.
Lower, maybe a little bit lower in off season. So let's say on average $1,000 out of pocket in cash. Again, you multiply that by 4, 5, 6, that's a whole lot of money just to get over there. So we can transfer our points over to Air France and we can book essentially that exact same flight for, I would say on average, 30 to 40,000 points round trip. And I usually shoot for $200 in taxes per person. Okay. So 30 to 40,000 points round trip and about 200 in taxes. So instead of 1,000, instead of my family dropping, say, $4,000 on flights to Europe, I can fly my family to Europe for $800 instead. My entire family of 4, potentially even a little bit less, depending on the age of your kiddos. So again, okay, well, that just made that Europe trip a little more in reach, but especially if you could cover, some of your hotels on points, that really makes a bucket list trip. Again, it's not free. Sometimes the trips are nearly free. Sometimes the trips are free. Like that Big Sur one, it covered the cost of our food. So, it really was pretty much truly free. And other ones, it's just really steeply discounting and making something possible that really was 10 years away. And now it's right here and possible.
Every year. So, yeah, because you've been doing this every single year. And not only that, you've been doing this, 3-4 times a year between family trips and you and your husband and...
Yeah, I would say we're on average, realistically probably taking, 4, pretty bucket list trips a year, not just to Ohio or, pretty, not that I don't love Ohio, I don't know, right. But, pretty things we've really dreamed about for a while. And then maybe, a few small, go and visit family or, that's kind of a whole nother thing. I love that it takes away the stress of, if something a year or so ago, a funeral came up and we could just purchase the ticket stress-free. We had this massive stash of points and we, when things like that come up, it just takes off that financial burden. And that alone has been such a gift to us for weddings, seeing family, the unfortunate things that come up. So there's just so many, and all the while seeing our credit score never higher. So it really, I'm just why isn't everyone doing this? It's just, if you can stay organized and stay responsible, it really is kind of life-changing. It really has really changed our lives. So
yeah, we like to say it, 30, 40,000 points round trip. You could fly to Orlando from Texas, right?
Yep.
Or you can fly to Europe.
Right. If you know how to use your points. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And so we like to open up the idea that this is possible. It's not something that you have to be uber wealthy and stuff like that. I love that you're talking about just the everyday family could accomplish this.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's the beauty of it. Yes.
Well, and I've heard you say we on average kind of get to about 1 million points a year without spending $1 million.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Now, I'll say that's with, I always like to be transparent, so that's me and my husband both opening up cards. And then we each have kind of a side hustle, which, we haven't even touched on business cards, but that's a whole nother opportunity for earning. So with both of our, side hustles, which mine is like a larger, I have an actual LLC. His is very minimal. I mean, he takes on maybe 2, he's a woodworker, so he takes on maybe 2 woodworking projects a year. Very minimal side hustle, but that does qualify him for business cards. And through the ability to open up business cards, that's essentially like tripling and then quadrupling our points earning potential. So now we can apply for cards that get those big piles of points back in our pocket, via him personally, me personally, his business, and my business, which really, that really is attainable for a lot of people. You probably do have like a side hustle that qualifies and you don't even realize. So I'll say that, like, through those 4 kind of means, we're referring each other back and forth, we're opening up those new cards, and all through that, I would say on average, it sounds like a whole lot, but it's easier than you think, about 1 million points a year.
Not to skip over it, that referral is important because you're getting bonus points with those referrals.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, anywhere from 10 to, right now it's 40,000 points is the highest referral bonus. That's about to go down. So I would say on average, anywhere from 10 to 25,000 points additional for making that referral. And that's not to mention, I mean, you can refer
anybody.
People. Absolutely. You can, the banks do cap. Typically you can make like 4 to 5 referrals a year and they cap it. But refer your friend, refer your mom. I mean, such an easy way to get free points, back in your pocket. So.
And Abby, you did make one good point, is this, if you can stay organized. So do you have kind of a method or a system? So how do you keep track of not only the cards you have, when they're going to renew so that you don't have to pay these fees? And then, how do you make sure that you pay the minimums and that kind of thing? Walk us through that.
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say my most important things are my Travel Freely app. Like, hands down, everyone should go and download that. It's called Travel Freely. It's free. Completely free, and it essentially is my sanity saver. I am a busy working mom. I do not have the mental space to keep track of all these cards, these annual fees, these bonus points. And so this free app is a lifesaver, and it essentially, I input my card, no personal details. You're just putting in what type of card it is, so it's completely secure, and it's keeping track of all my cards. It's keeping track of all my husband's cards. It's keeping track of all my husband's business cards, my business cards. It's sending me, notifications like, hey, you have an annual fee coming up in 30 days. So I can then make a decision about what I want to do. Am I going to keep that card because it's providing my family ongoing value, or is that one I'm going to downgrade and to a no annual fee version? And then it makes recommendations on which cards to downgrade to. It keeps track of, some other kind of stats that are helpful to keep track of when it comes to points and miles. It keeps track of all your points earned. I mean, it makes personalized card recommendations. Like, hey, here's based on the cards you have, here would be the most valuable next sign up for you. So hands down, that I recommend downloading that free app.
So I agree. That is one, I've used that one for years too. So I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Even it has some great beginners videos in there too, just to kind of get you started. And then also just setting up auto pay. Such a simple thing, but just whenever you get a new card, always, always, always set up auto pay right away. Because again, those full and on-time payments are Like if you can't do that, you can't really do this. So you have to make those full and on-time payments. So as soon as we get a new card, we are immediately setting up auto pay.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So Abby, do you ever get to the point where you run out of new cards?
Such a good question. I love that question. And one of the most common too, I would say. No, we've been doing this a few years and I still feel like there's so many cards to get. I would say a few things. One, there's always new cards coming out. So like, for example, that Capital One Venture X that we talked about earlier, that's actually a fairly newer card that just came out, 2.5 years ago, maybe? So new cards always coming out. Number one. Number two, a lot of cards. Number two, I'll say, there's just a whole lot of cards out there. Like you have the big bank cards, and then you have airline specific cards. You have hotel specific cards. I mean, there's just so many avenues you can go down. And then number three, what a lot of people don't know is you can get the bonus again on a lot of cards. So many cards allow you to earn that welcome bonus every 24 to 48 months. So each card has its own rules. But for example, like on that Chase Sapphire that we talked about at the beginning, you can earn the welcome bonus on that card every 48 months. So, essentially you could sign up for it, let's say it was, 2024 right now. I'm going to hold on to one for my household for those 4 years. And then I can downgrade that card to a no annual fee version. And a few weeks later, I can reapply for that Chase Sapphire and get that welcome bonus again. So that's a whole nother piece of things, is there's kind of this perpetual earning capability with certain cards and banks.
Wow. Okay. And so you downgrade it and then you're reapplying for the higher level for the next. Is that correct?
Right. You would downgrade it. Like, let's say, we took the Chase Sapphire and we say downgraded to say the Chase Freedom Flex, which is a no annual fee, actually great card to have in your wallet. And then I could reapply for the Chase Sapphire.
Okay.
Preferred, just normal, that $95 annual fee one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
When you go somewhere, are you the person who's keeping up with hey, no, that's not the right card to use at a restaurant. Use this other card, and, and you're checking into the hotel, buying gas, right?
That's so funny. I am not the person that'll say anything. I probably think it in my mind, like, oh man, you could be earning so many more points, If someone asks me, I'll for sure, tell them like, hey, did you know you could be earning like 4 times points at restaurants? Like, but I usually don't like point it out, but I definitely am thinking it in my head. Like, because so many people just have that like one Marriott card they've had for 15 years, and they just have no idea. Yeah. Right? You don't know what you don't know. Like, that was us with the Southwest card that we had for 15 years probably. Like, we just had no idea kind of what we were missing out on, in a way. So, yeah. But I definitely do think it in my head.
Yeah. And we're totally guilty. So we are from Atlanta, grew up in Atlanta.
Okay.
Scott's mom actually worked for Delta. He's had Delta status forever. And so, yes, we are still the ones who have some of the Delta cards for the benefits and stuff like that.
Totally.
And we have even, we have these points. We've even used them in the Chase. So a lot of people, I think Amex is the only one that transfers to Delta.
Correct.
And so it's a little bit harder to get those Delta points. And there has been times that we have used the portal and just said, okay, because he has the status that where then we would get the upgrades, right? So we would end up in first class,
absolutely,
even though it's going to cost us more. And Delta points anybody who uses Delta points knows that you talking about an Air France flight round trip for 40. I mean, you're looking at, I think the best redemption we've ever gotten on Delta is like 60, high 60s to 75 or something like that. But if that was what works out for you, then that's what works out for you. But you're saying if you can look at these other ones, if you can be flexible, if you can book on Air France, it might mean the difference between 1 trip and 2 trips or 3 trips.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's such an important point though, is you can't, I think there's so many people in the points world that get really caught up on the points value, like, oh, you got how many cents per point, I think a lot of people get really caught up in that. But like, I think at the end of the day, if it's saving you money, whether you use it in the portal, like, okay, no, you're not going to get the best return on your points using them in the portal. But if it's saving you money and the trip is bringing you joy, or it's like something your family really wants to do, I think who cares, like,
right.
It's your points. And I don't think you can really like get caught at the end of the day. And I think that's like some of the hardest part of my job is I feel like sometimes I get lost in like the nitty gritty of like these card perks and the welcome bonus and transferring here and redeeming there. And it's like, really at the end of the day, it is about the memories that you're making as a family, like period. So who cares if you got a 2 times return on your point or a 0.5 return on your point or a 7, times return on your point on a business class flight. Like, I just really think don't stress about it. Like if you use it in the portal and it brought you joy and it saved you money, like, better now, but also, hey, so that's kind of my philosophy. I try not to, even though it's my job, I try not to be too serious about it.
Because at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's still free or discounted.
Yes, exactly.
It was something that you may or may not have been able to do at that level without having those. And so that brings me to a question that I'd actually written down because I've heard you say some things and this is how I am. But what do you say to people who research to the nth degree and then you're finally like, okay, like I've got to book this trip before then you keep researching and then it's completely gone. So how do you make that leap?
Totally. Okay. I literally just did this. We just spent a weekend in Martha's Vineyard and I just researched it to death. I mean, and by the time I did, some of the options I was looking at were gone, and they were good options. So I will say, I guess 2 things. One, something in the points and miles world that we say is earn and burn. Like you want to earn those points and you want to burn them. You want to earn them and you want to use them right away because your points will never, ever get more valuable just sitting there, ever. They are literally losing value as they sit there, just like with cash and inflation. It's the same thing. So if you can, like, I can't tell you how many messages I get of people that are like, I'm just sitting on 300,000 points and like, analysis paralysis, like I just can't, I don't know what to do with them. I just can't I'm too scared of using them in the wrong way. So I think that's a really helpful, it's just as they're sitting there, they're getting less valuable. I would say the earning part is not the hard part. The redeeming part, I think, is the harder part. I think once you get in this, you see how actually really easy it is to earn. It's the redeeming part that kind of gets tricky. So I think that kind of helps, And then also just the mindset of like, knowing you can always earn more. There's not ever going to be a perfect redemption, and that's okay. If you save money in the end, you can always go back and earn more and either do that trip again or do a whole nother trip. So I think that's a really good question. But they never get more valuable. So you really want to try and use them as soon as you earn them.
Yeah, that is a good. And stop looking, right?
Yeah, I know.
Stop looking.
You do it to yourself. I know. I mean, I will say that's kind of a perk of points. It's things are more easily cancelable.
That's true.
Without any consequences. So that's another perk. But yes, stop looking once you booked.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that is true. They are because we had just actually booked a trip when Delta kind of came out with that one where they give you, 15% off for certain SkyMiles members.
Yes.
Literally the day before had booked a trip. And of course it made him so nervous because I'm like, well, I'll just cancel these and I'll wait for him to go back. And he was like, and it worked. It worked because but it does make you nervous. But I think you just have to then at that point, you have to stop looking and move on with the rest of your plans and stuff too. So I think that's I think that's a great point. And the point of them is to use them, right? Not to have just this bank of points that like never use. Yeah. So,
and the point of them is to see somewhere you want to see and build family memories, at the end of the day, that's the purpose. So,
so I want to kind of close out with a couple of things. So the first thing I want to do is allow you to share kind of how people can get a hold of some other resources. And I want to kind of give you a testimonial that you don't even know about for an upcoming trip that we have first.
Oh, yay. Okay.
And then we're going to close with some questions that we ask everybody. And there is so much more that people can learn about this. And you're an amazing teacher. So we barely scratched the surface. So I guess tell people how they can find you and then dig deeper into some of their strategies. And before you do that, I do want to say you have these amazing charts in one of your guides. And I think it's like your second level guide.
Yes.
I literally printed off like 3 copies of this.
So happy.
Yes.
Good.
So Scott and I are going to Africa. We're going to do Egypt, Kenya, and South Africa in a couple of months. And so, part of it is a safari. So that was out of pocket, right? Yeah. There may be ways to do points with Safari, but we're not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard.
But for these flights and for some of the other places we're going, we wanted to do that. And so I really wanted to, we had started about a year ago, with the Chase Reserve. We've done some other cards. We had a bank of points that we wanted to do because for us, it's just the two of us. We wanted to be able to do some like first class redemptions, right? For these long haul flights.
Absolutely.
But then being able to so you have these charts printed out. It shows you your transfer partners, the couple of different cards. I had those as a great guide to then start looking at some of these redemptions. So tell us a little bit about what you offer, how people can dig deeper in with you, because you're a fantastic teacher and the way that you explain this is amazing.
That means a lot. Thank you. I used to be in education, so that really, I feel like it kind of has been like a really awesome combination of my kind of past and actions, which has been really, really cool. So I'm honored that you would purchase the guide. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that it brought you value. So I have a free guide. If you're interested, if you're visual and, you just want to like see it in front of you, like I'm so visual. I just want to see it. I want to touch it. I do have a free guide that kind of gets in writing, like kind of everything we talked about, I feel like here. So you can find that. My main platform I'm on Instagram at Wayfair & Co, WAYFAREN Co. So that's kind of my main like home of sorts on the internet, other than my blog, which everything's linked though in my Instagram. So you can find my free guide there, which just goes over again that big picture framework of how this all works and how to do it with keeping your credit, super high. And then I have my paid guide, the Points 201, which you purchase. And that's going to be like all the nitty gritty and like how this actually works. Because kind of once you get into it, I mean, you're even like, okay, once I have these points, like, how do I even transfer them? Like, I don't even know in my bank portal, like how to transfer points and how does that work? So it goes in depth in all like, video demos, step-by-steps, video tutorials, all these charts for easy reference, like kind of like 2-click tools to make things essentially just to like fast track your nearly free vacations. Like if you want to kind of jump over the learning curve and just dive in and start, traveling more for less, a whole lot faster, I would say that's kind of who my Points 201 guide is for. It's just that like really the how of it all. So all of that is linked at the link in my profile on my Instagram page, Wayfair & Co. And then I have my blog.wayfair.com, where, if you prefer that type of content, more long form, I have that there as well. So,
awesome. And we will put the links. I'll put the link to your Instagram and then some of your other guides, but your free guide is amazing too. I mean,
thank you.
It's not 5 pages either. It's not, it's huge and it's free. And
I do really try and really want it to be worth people's time. So I know people's time is precious. So
yes. Well, it's awesome. Okay. So we have some questions that we like to ask all our guests. So
there's 3 questions. The first one is your most favorite place you've ever visited.
This question is so hard. So hard to choose. Okay. That's number 1. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to think about it. You can give us a runner up too if you need to, because we're the same way. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with a trip that was like, yes, it was an amazing place, but it was also a meaningful trip. So I feel like that's kind of a piece there. And then I'll give you a runner up, I think. Okay, so Norway. We went to Norway last summer and we went with our whole extended family. So it was think it was 13 of us total, like 5 being like young kids. My husband's side of the family is Norwegian. So they always kind of had like a bucket list dream to do like a heritage trip of sorts over to Norway. And so I helped everyone get their flights on points. Everyone transferred their Capital One points to Air France, and everyone got their tickets for around that $200 over to Norway, which like totally made the trip possible. And then we got to go to kind of like my husband's namesake, like Hatteburg Valley, Hatteburg Waterfall, this tiny, just otherworldly, charming city, in the countryside of Norway. And it was just like hands down one of the most beautiful places we've been. It was so family friendly for young families. And I just can never get enough of Europe. I can go there, just never get tired of it. So I would say that just because it was so majestic, like the fjords. And I mean, there truly wasn't an inch of it that wasn't beautiful. Like we just kept going everywhere, and it was just even better than we thought. So I'll say that. And then I'm going to put my number 2. It's really hard. I'm going to say number 2 is a tie for, we went to the Azores Islands, which we really loved.
Okay.
Those are off the coast of Portugal. That was just so unique. And it just felt like kind of a little bit of an untouched hidden gem that like hasn't been discovered yet. So prices were just so reasonable. It felt reasonably empty compared to other European places in the summer. The natural beauty, it was just so like biologically diverse and ecologically diverse. It was gorgeous. So I'll say that is my runner up, probably.
That sounds awesome. So I think we need to get there sooner rather than later.
Yes, you do.
A lot of people, it's like the Hawaii of
Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem I would say with these questions is we always add to our bucket list, right? So,
that's so true. I love that.
So the next question that we ask everyone is, what's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
My gosh. Okay. Right now, it changes every week, I feel like. South Africa is up there for us. So we would really like to make that happen in the next few years, I think. So I'm going to be taking notes.
Okay.
When you guys hear that. That one's really up high, especially for my husband. I would say this upcoming year, we're planning for a trip to Bora Bora for our 15th anniversary. So I think that's kind of been on our list for quite some time. So I would say there. Oh, what else? There's even just in the US though, like I'm so eager to go to like the Tetons or Glacier National Park. Like it's so hard for me to choose. I would say right now, we haven't really explored Asia much. Like we're dying to go to Thailand. I would say those are kind of the top ones coming to mind right now. Oh, and I'll add the Faroe Islands.
Yes.
I really would love to do the Faroe Islands. It seems a bit similar to Norway, so I was trying to maybe wait a year or two before we do that one. But yeah, that's high up there as well.
Yeah, we fell in love with that after watching Colin and Meg. I don't know if
same.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and I saw another account a few years ago post about it. I feel like this is what happens to me is I see someone else post about it, and then it just gets lodged in my brain and I can't let it go. And I'm like, we have to go there, And so, I mean, thankfully with points, like I can make it possible. But yeah, I feel like that's the same. I see someone else post about it and then I just can't let go of it. So,
Well, and that's what I was going to say. What's amazing is these are not just, this is on my bucket list, but you're going to figure out how to do it with points and miles. And that's what's so incredible. Yeah.
I can't believe we're even like thinking about a Bora Bora trip. Like never in my wildest dreams could we afford that. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. And then, so tell us.
I have one more question.
Okay.
It is, what's next on your list?
Yeah, where are you headed? Yeah, where are you headed next?
Okay, we are going. So we just got back from a summer in the East Coast. And late September, we are heading to the Oregon coast. So we're doing like one night in Portland and then like 3 or 4 nights on the coast, kind of by like Cannon Beach area. And then in October, we're doing southern Spain. So like the Costa del Sol area, kind of around Malaga. We're really excited about that. I'm excited to go that time of year because I hope it'll be a little, not as hot, a little less crowds. So yeah, that's what's up next for us.
Awesome. And all with points and miles, which is what I think is just
it's really
incredible.
Offsetting a ton of our costs.
and making that possible. So yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been so informative. I always learn from watching your reels, from watching your Instagram stories. I always learn stuff. And then I'd learn new stuff tonight that you can downgrade that card and then reapply for that. I had no idea. So thank you so much for sharing this with our listeners. And we just appreciate that so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Abby. So I guess it's important to say that this mainly helps with your hotel and accommodations, which for most trips is going to be your biggest expense that you have. And so what we've tried to say today is this is going to help you get to maybe some free travel or near free travel, but it's not going to take care of everything. However, since those are your biggest expenses, this helps you get to the point where you can afford to do this, maybe even multiple times a year like Abby and her family do. What do you find to be the best use of your credit card reward points? Email me, scott@sunshinetravelers.com, and let me know what you think. We always love hearing from our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found some inspiration to help you with your travel journeys. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, it would be greatly appreciated. Your 5-star reviews help us get discovered by others and possibly featured on your favorite platform. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast to get notified of new episodes as they are released. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember, that is Travelers with one L. Most importantly, please share it with your friends to help them catch the travel bug. You never know, they may become your greatest travel companion.